What if tomorrow morning you woke up and could move objects with your mind, and your neighbor could fly, and the person next door could read thoughts like flipping through a book? What if superpowers stopped being fantasy and became as common as owning a smartphone? The future of humanity would flip upside down in ways that would make every sci-fi movie look tame. We're about to crack open exactly what that world would look like, piece by mind-bending. Please hit that like if you're ready to explore the wildest transformation our species could ever face. Right now, we're living in a moment where the line between human and superhuman is getting thinner by the day. Brain-computer interfaces are letting paralyzed people control robotic arms with pure thought. CRISPR, gene editing is rewriting DNA like we're correcting typos in a document. Exoskeletons are giving ordinary workers the strength of 10 people. We're not there yet, but we're close enough to taste it. That means we can actually map out what happens when everyone crosses that threshold. This isn't about a handful of chosen ones saving the world in spandex. This is about 8 billion people suddenly gaining abilities that shatter every rule we've built civilization on, and the chaos and beauty that follows. Let's start with the immediate aftermath, because the first 72 hours would be absolute madness. Picture the moment when powers manifest across the planet simultaneously. You're sitting in traffic, and suddenly the car in front of you lifts off the ground because its driver just discovered telekinesis. A teenager in Mumbai realizes she can phase through walls. She accidentally falls through 3 floors of her apartment building. An office worker in Toronto finds out he can duplicate himself, and now there are 5 versions of him panicking in the same cubicle. The sheer randomness of power distribution would create instant pandemonium. Emergency services would be overwhelmed within minutes. Hospitals would flood with people who hurt themselves testing their abilities. Governments would scramble to issue guidelines. But how do you regulate something that rewrites physics itself? The stock market would crash as investors realize money means nothing when someone can transmute lead. Social media would explode with millions of videos showing powers in action, creating a global verification crisis as everyone tries to figure out what's real and what's edited. But humans are adaptable creatures, ridiculously so. And after the initial shock, we'd start organizing. Communities would form around power types. Telepaths would create mental networks for instant communication across continents. Healers would set up clinics in underserved areas, erasing diseases that have plagued us for centuries. Technopaths would revolutionize infrastructure, upgrading power grids and internet systems with a thought. Strength-enhanced individuals would rebuild disaster zones in days instead of years. The education system would transform overnight. Schools would teach power control alongside math and literature. Universities would develop entire departments studying the science of abilities, trying to understand the energy sources and biological mechanisms that make them possible. New sports leagues would emerge where super-speed runners compete in races that cover continents, where flyers perform aerial ballet that makes Olympic gymnastics look like child's play. Strategy games would involve actual mind readers trying to outthink each other. The entertainment industry would explode with possibilities. Concerts where pyrokinetics create real fireworks, synchronized with the music. Movies filmed by people who can actually shapeshift into characters. Or theme parks where gravity manipulators create real zero-gravity experiences that defy everything we know about physics. The economy would restructure itself in radical ways. Traditional jobs would vanish or evolve. Why hire a construction crew when one person with super strength can build a house in an afternoon? Why pay for shipping when teleporters can move cargo instantly across oceans? This would spark a massive conversation about universal basic income and resource distribution. If powers make traditional labor obsolete, how do people earn a living? Some economists argue that a post-scarcity society becomes possible when energy manipulators can generate unlimited clean power. Matter creators can produce food and materials from thin air. Others worry about massive unemployment and inequality if some powers are more valuable than others. A teleporter could charge premium rates, while someone whose only ability is changing their hair color might struggle to monetize their gift. We'd need entirely new economic models, possibly shifting toward contribution-based systems where people are valued for creativity, innovation, and community building rather than raw productive capacity. Drop in the comments, what power would you want, and how would you use it to change your corner of the world? Crime and justice would become exponentially more complex. Law enforcement would need officers with powers to stop criminals with powers. creating an arms race of abilities. Prisons would require power-dampening technology that we're only starting to theorize about in current research. The legal system would face unprecedented questions. Is it assault if you accidentally project your emotions onto someone and they feel terrified? Is it theft if you can duplicate objects infinitely? Is it invasion of privacy if you see through walls? Countries would draft new constitutions addressing superhuman rights and restrictions. Some nations might require power registration, tracking who has what abilities for public safety. Others might view that as authoritarian overreach, sparking global debates about freedom versus security that make current privacy arguments look quaint. International relations would shift dramatically. Military power would no longer depend on technology and numbers, but on the concentration and types of abilities a nation could field. A single person with the right power could level cities or create impenetrable shields. Nuclear deterrence becomes meaningless when someone can teleport bombs away or absorb and redirect energy. We'd likely see new alliances form based on complementary powers rather than historical ties or geography. The social fabric would experience tremors we can barely predict. Dating and relationships would transform when telepaths can sense. True feelings and shapeshifters can become anyone's ideal. Marriage vows would need addendums about power, use, and consent. Parenthood would involve teaching toddlers not just to walk and talk, but to control abilities that could accidentally hurt themselves or others. Picture a child throwing a tantrum with telekinesis, furniture flying across the room. Schools would need power-proof classrooms and teachers trained in ability management alongside traditional education. Friendship dynamics would shift as people navigate new realities. One friend can fly to Paris for lunch, while another is stuck with the ability to glow in the dark. Jealousy and resentment would bubble up. Those with flashy powers might become celebrities, while others with subtle abilities feel overlooked. Social media would amplify this, creating influencer cultures around power demonstrations and ability showcases. Mental health services would face unprecedented demand as people cope with identity crises, power-related trauma, and the psychological burden of capabilities they never asked for. Religion and philosophy would enter Renaissance periods of reinterpretation. Are powers divine gifts, evolutionary leaps, or scientific anomalies? Different faiths would incorporate abilities into their cosmologies. Some might view them as blessings to be used for good, others as tests of moral character, still others as signs of end times or new beginnings. Atheists and scientists would hunt for materialist explanations, studying genetics, quantum mechanics, and neurology to understand the source. This could either unite humanity under shared wonder or fracture us further. The big existential questions would hit harder than ever. What does it mean to be human when humans can do the impossible? Are we still the same species or something new? Transhumanists would celebrate the leap, while bioconservatives would mourn the loss of natural humanity. Artists and writers would explore these themes in explosions of creative output, using their own powers to craft works impossible in our current world. Healthcare would undergo the most dramatic revolution in human history. Healers could cure cancer with a touch, regenerate lost limbs, reverse aging itself. Hospitals might become obsolete except for the most complex cases or for teaching anatomy and technique. Life expectancy could shoot up to 200 years or more if regenerative powers are common enough. This creates population pressure on an unprecedented scale. With far fewer people dying, birth rates would need to drop or we'd face resource crises even powers couldn't solve. Immigration policies would be rewritten as people seek better healers. Pharmaceutical companies would collapse or pivot toward enhancing powers rather than treating diseases. Medical schools would teach energy healing alongside surgery, mental fortification alongside psychiatry. The disabled community would face complex feelings. Some disabilities might vanish entirely, healed by abundant powers. But what about the identity and culture built around disability? Would cure culture become even more oppressive? Or would society finally achieve true accommodation now that modification of environments is trivial? Tag a friend who needs to hear this wildest timeline breakdown. Environmental issues could finally meet their match or accelerate toward catastrophe depending on how powers are wielded. Teams of elemental controllers reversing climate change, pulling carbon from the atmosphere, cooling polar ice caps, redirecting hurricanes away from populated areas. Ocean cleaners could literally command plastic to separate from water. Reforesters could accelerate growth, turning deserts green in months. Extinct species could be resurrected by biomanipulators or genetic masters. We could terraform inhospitable regions, create floating cities with gravity controllers, or establish underwater civilizations with water breathers. But the flip side is terrifying. Eco-terrorists with destructive powers could unleash droughts and earthquakes. Accidental environmental damage from untrained power users could devastate ecosystems. A well-meaning pyrokinetic could start wildfires. A novice weather controller could trigger tornadoes. We'd need global environmental councils with teeth, able to respond instantly to power-caused disasters and enforce rules about ecological manipulation. The debate over whether humans should control nature would intensify. Do we have the right to reshape Earth just because we can, or is there wisdom in limits? Space exploration would leap forward by centuries in just years. Astronauts who don't need spacesuits because they can survive in vacuum, generate their own oxygen, or adapt to any environment. Builders who can construct space stations and lunar bases with their minds and materials generated from moon dust. Propulsion experts who can open wormholes or accelerate ships to light speed. We could establish Mars colonies within a decade. Mine asteroids for resources, explore the outer solar system with human crews instead of robots. First contact scenarios become more plausible when we can send telepaths to communicate with alien intelligence or dimension hoppers to explore parallel realities. Humanity would become an interplanetary and possibly interdimensional species almost overnight. This would unite us around common goals of expansion and discovery, or divide us as nations and factions race to claim cosmic territory. Space law would need complete overhauls. Who owns an asteroid if one person can teleport there? What rights do colonies have versus their home planets? These questions would shape the next phase of human civilization. But let's zoom into something more intimate, more immediate. Think about your daily life transformed. Your morning alarm doesn't buzz because your personal AI interface wakes you perfectly. You don't shower because a cleanliness manipulator friend designed a weekly hygiene field that keeps you fresh. Breakfast materializes from a food synthesizer powered by your neighbor. Your commute is instant, stepping through a portal network maintained by the city's teleportation guild. Work isn't about producing anymore, but about creating and innovating, solving problems that only human intuition and powered capabilities can tackle together. Lunch is a social event where friends meet across time zones simultaneously through projection or astral travel. Evenings involve hobbies that were previously impossible. You might sculpt clouds into art, compose music that manifests as visible light, or play in virtual realities indistinguishable from physical ones. Dating means connecting with people who truly get you because emotional sensors and compatibility readers make miscommunication nearly obsolete. This sounds utopian, and parts of it could be, but the loss of privacy and autonomy might sting. How do you have secrets when mind readers exist? How do you feel special when everyone is extraordinary? The psychological adjustment might be the hardest challenge. Humans evolved for a world where we're fragile, mortal, and limited. Purpose came from struggling against constraints, building meaning through effort and scarcity. What happens to human drive when everything becomes easy? Some people would thrive, unleashed from survival mode to pursue pure passion. Others would spiral into depression and aimlessness, unable to find meaning without struggle. Suicide rates might spike among those who can't adapt or who realize their pre-powered dreams are trivial. Mental health frameworks would need complete reconstruction to address existential crises unique to a powered world. Therapists with empathic abilities could help, but they'd also be overwhelmed. We'd have to cultivate new philosophies around purpose, focusing on growth, connection, exploration, and the endless pursuit of understanding rather than mere achievement. Here's the thing that blows my mind the most. A world where everyone has superpowers isn't actually about the powers themselves. It's about what we choose to do with the quality of impossibility. When everyone is super, the playing field levels in a completely new way. The barriers that divide us now, wealth, geography, physical ability, much of that crumbles. What remains is character, choice, and creativity. Do we use our gifts to build something beautiful together, or do we let fear and tribalism turn us into factions at war? History suggests we do both, swinging between cooperation and conflict as we figure out this new existence. But I want to believe, maybe naively, that when the impossible becomes possible for everyone, we'd finally see each other as the same. Not despite our differences, but because we'd all share the experience of being suddenly, terrifyingly, wonderfully, more than we were yesterday. This isn't just fantasy fuel. This is a mirror showing us who we are right now. The way we'd handle universal superpowers reflects how we handle inequality and technology today. Every question we've explored: who controls, who benefits, who decides? Those are the questions we're already facing as a species. We're just moving slower, evolving incrementally through technology. But the destination might be similar: a post-human future where biological and technological enhancements make us all extraordinary in different ways. Getting ready for that world starts now, by building systems that are fair, resilient, and focused on human flourishing over narrow interests. So here's my final thought, and this genuinely changed how I see the world. Superpowers or not, we already have something incredible. We have minds that can imagine these scenarios, voices that can share them, and the collective ability to shape our future. That's pretty super already. The question isn't what would happen if everyone had powers. The question is, what are we doing with the powers we already have? To create, to connect, to care, to push boundaries and lift each other up. Smash that subscribe button for more journeys into impossible futures and the science pushing us there. Drop your wildest theory in the comments about which power would break society first and why. Share this with your crew who love deep dives into what makes us human. Because the future is calling, and the only limit is imagination and what we choose to build together. Let's make it legendary.